Hi, this is literally gonna sound like shit, but that's fine, because there's nothing we can do about it. Recently, I had an encounter with a peer, and I realized that not everybody who goes to college is educated, and that is fine. That is fine, because they're probably using their money and working towards a degree, and some classes like gender studies, where you learn about your moral compass or you learn about what you stand for and who you are, is not a priority. Whatever, fuck it. So today is episode 1, and I want to talk about social construction and what it means to live in a social construct. And keep in mind, living in a social construct is not necessarily bad, but it's good to recognize and acknowledge when you're living in something that doesn't make any sense. So, let's start with this hypothetical I learned, and it helped me visualize what a social construction was. So, let's start with let's think. This guy named Jonathan. Jonathan is looking at a field of nothingness, and Jonathan comes up with the idea of, maybe I want to build an apartment complex. And so he hires a team of people to come and lay foundation. So even the floor, lay cement, and make sure that it's even, that the foundation is strong. And then after these people who lay the foundation, another team, a completely different team, at a different point in time, maybe like a week later, come and build walls and build pillars and build the structure of this apartment complex. And then another team comes in and does, windows and walls and doorways and stuff like that. And then another team comes in and does the detail orientation of it. So interior decoration, wallpaper, what the ceiling will look like. And once it's done, the most important factor of this whole literal construction of a building is you and I. I live in this apartment complex, and I walk in and out of this building every single day, and I don't think about why I walk in and out of this building, or why there's so many windows, or why my stairway wraps around and it's not just straight up. This is that and the other. So that is a literal construction. So pause and let's talk about this other hypothetical. Okay, there's this thing called the earlobe hypothetical, this earlobe theory. And I'm going to start with saying that, let's say one day there is these kids who come up with this myth. And they say people who have earlobes that are attached to their face are more likely to be people who could get attached to other people and get married and have relationships and have children and essentially have a pretty normal life. But then people who have earlobes that are detached, like dangling earlobes, are unable to have the capacity to be attached to other people. So this ends up being people who are narcissists, or egotistic people who have a hard time working with other people, or I don't even know, just people who do not have the capacity to be attached to other people, which can cause a life of unhappiness because they will forever be alone. So let's take this myth, and let's say they go home and they tell their parents, and their parents start noticing in their family photos that all of their family members who have husbands and wives and families have earlobes that are attached to their face, and their family members who don't have, or who have detached earlobes, are members of the family who end up being alone, end up just being a fun uncle or fun auntie and whatnot. And so there's like this like stereotype within the community, and then years later this myth comes back up, and they're like, actually, here's a statistical analysis on like every single person in the United States who was born with attached earlobes, and they ended up being successful, which is like, I don't know, fake news. But let's use this for example. In people who are born with detached earlobes, just by chance happen to be criminals and predators and just not good people. And so now with this myth, we have statistical data and analysis to back up this myth, which is problematic, because now there are people, another group of people like journalists and scientists and doctors will come and prove that even more, the detached earlobe theory, and like how they are criminals and what can make them criminals and the psychology behind it and whatnot. And so years later, we start seeing, in movies, we start seeing villains with detached earlobes, and superheroes are attached earlobes, and there's all these different portrayals in TV and in our social media. And then another couple generations later, we have like a civil war, and it's detached earlobes versus attached earlobes, and everybody in between, like me for example. I have like, they're not completely attached, but they're kind of dangly at the bottom. So it's like you have all these different people who have different kind of ears, and they're not all the way attached and all the way detached. So like, what about that minority? And so it just becomes this whole thing, and no one even knows where it stemmed from, because now we live in a social construction where we look at each other's earlobes to determine like our perception of somebody, which doesn't make any fucking sense. So that's when social construction is problematic, and when you don't recognize social construction around you. Like when you need to take a step back and be like, wait, what the fuck? Why are we stereotyping people just based off earlobes? To understand social construction is an awesome foundation to learn about anything. Like taking a step back and trying to get another perspective on something that you've believed your whole life. So, yeah, that is a social construction. And I have a lot more things I want to talk about. And this is literally the basics of like anything. Like literally religion, gender, the idea of sexual discrimination with sexual orientation, and a lot of people are lacking the fundamentals of these concepts and are expected to have an opinion about something that they might not fully understand. So these foundations I am using as a tool to help educate my friends, my family, anybody who focus isn't where they don't really think about it in their daily life, but they want to be politically correct, or they want to have a segue to have a conversation or a controversial conversation with somebody. And so I hope you enjoy this. Please send me, if you would like to help me in this jumpstart to my podcast, please send me things that I can talk about, or correct me if I'm wrong, or fact check me and send me some information, please, because while I am trying to help educate my peers, I am also learning myself. And it takes a village to raise a child, or in this case, it takes society to build a construct. So any feedback is helpful. Thank you. Mwah! My name is Julissa. I am an education major. I'm in my third year, so I'm almost fucking done.